Hi, everybody. If you're following along as these are being released day after day, you'll notice I took yesterday off. We had reached the halfway point, and I just gave us a day to sit with what we've learned, or maybe to catch up, or just use that day however. And plus, Mark chapter 9 is very dense. So I'm just going to hit a few high points and maybe say a little something, and then you can have at it, do your own study. It begins with the transfiguration, and the transfiguration is a little confusing probably, but I want you to read that in light of the very opening statement where Jesus says, "Some of you will not taste death before seeing me in my glory." And then a few of the disciples get to go up and see Jesus in all of that glory. And he meets with Moses and Elijah. And Moses is the giver of the law, and Elijah is the greatest of prophets. And this is Jesus who fulfills the law and the prophets meeting with those representatives. It's kind of a cool picture. Think about Peter's response, if yours would be any different. I mean, Peter's pretty selfish and has been in the last couple chapters. And he acts selfishly again, but man, it would be cool. I think I'd want that group of men to stick around a little bit myself. And then you have that the passage that I've spoken about before with that beautiful prayer. The guy whose son has a spirit inside of him, sounds a lot like epilepsy, and he's just asking Jesus to heal him, and Jesus says it's possible for people who believe, and he says, "I believe, but help my unbelief," and how beautiful that prayer is. I want you to notice, read through that, and just embrace that spirit of really challenging your own faith to help someone you love. That's a really cool thing. And notice that the guy who brings him, what he does is he says, "Yeah, I brought him, and your disciples couldn't take care of this for me, so I'm bringing him to you." And immediately after this story takes place, the disciples are arguing with each other about who the greatest of them is. And I want to rest here for a couple minutes because I don't think we sit around and think about, well, who is the greatest among us, right? But I would venture to say that in most churches and communities, we often want to focus on ourselves, and we have the loudest voices, especially as adults. So it's kind of like, well, who deserves the best ministries? Who deserves the best ministry space? And Jesus, when he hears them arguing amongst themselves, he picks up a kid and brings him in as like, who's going to serve the kid, right? And Jesus is basically, I mean, he says, if you cause one of these to stumble, it'd be better if you got a millstone put around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. He says, and he does this thing, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. If your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. And I've done a sermon on this in the past. I think he's talking very clearly about if you're gonna touch a child in a way that you shouldn't touch a child, if you're looking at a child in a way you shouldn't look at a child, who's willing to cut off their hand and pluck out their eye instead of going down that road? I mean, these are very stern pronouncements, and all I can think is, how many of us want to be important, but what Jesus is saying, look, my kingdom is a very odd kingdom. It's where impossible things are possible and where important people are not as important, right? It's the unimportant people that are important. We've talked about that before, right? Jesus' view of people. And so how do we serve children? I would venture to say that most of us in our churches, the kids just kind of get the spare room. Our ministries are mostly focused on ourselves. If we have paid staff, we pay the pastors really high, and the children's ministers, like down here, or they're just volunteers. I wonder if we really see people the way Jesus wants us to see people. Are we really willing to go to the wall for the people that seem least important. And that's what Jesus is asking his disciples to do. They're arguing about who the greatest is among them after they just failed at doing a miracle. And he's like, you want to know who the greatest is among you? This kid. And in the Bible, all through the Bible, man, orphans and widows, right? The children, the people nobody seems to want to help. Those are the people that we're supposed to be helping. It's a very challenging ending to this chapter. One that really should provoke us to thought about where our priorities lie. So that's Mark chapter 9. Hey, I'm like ending on a downer. Like, subscribe, comment, share, whatever. But read, take in, and challenge yourself with the words of Scripture. It'll be worth it. Have a great day, everybody. Love you guys.